organisers of the Northern Edible Garden Trail, myself and Blair and Conroy. And it's really delightful to have so many people come. It's really exciting.
And I think when we planned today, like CPP and children's gardening and composting, and then a 500 stir, and then 501 tomorrow morning. Has that ever been done?
Oh, yep.
In a 24-hour? It's the first for me. I think the most I've ever done like this is hot compost, CPP, and 500 in one session at a school event, and that was like a lot. So my name's Katrina Wolf. I have been running Blue Borage as a business for 5.5 years. When I first added the biodynamic compost preparations, and I've been making good soil. I had a nice worm farm. I kind of got the difference between cold composting, hot composting. Yeah, it's all fun. But when I added the 6 herbal remedies, the soil that came out, it was like one of those life moments where like time stands still and it's like, holy moly. What is this? Rachel, have you had that experience? You know people that have gone, this is not magic. I mean, it is magic, but I made this.
Yes,
yeah.
When you've made some really amazingly good compost.
Yeah. So it's been, if that was 2014 and we're now 2024, it's 10 years trying to make soil that good again and consistently and help other people do that. Politically, I think our food system is broken.
Your what, sorry?
Our food system is broken, and our business leaders, our political leaders aren't listening to what biodynamics has to offer, and I don't see many of them making compost. So I sort of feel that it's up to home gardeners to actually make amazing soil and say you're better to make it yourself, and to be free of garden centres, free of supermarkets, and build communities that learn that as common sense. I mean, we're doing it with food. I think in lockdown a lot of people learned to make sourdough. Like it was like the year of sourdough. And I was watching that trend and thinking, how can we do this for compost? And it hasn't happened yet. That maybe Northland Edible Garden Trail 2024 is the birth point of that. So a little bit about how I teach composting. Does everyone have compost happening at home? Who's hot composting? Okay. Who is using biodynamic compost preparations? Okay.
Not yet.
And who heard Rachel talking about the compost preparations this morning? Yeah, so there's a little sort of flame that's been started today. Okay, so this is the simplest 4-step process I've figured out to help people get their head around it. It's like organising resources and keeping them churning through so that you consistently have beautiful soil to use in the garden. This first step planning, where you're going to build a hot compost pile, is something that's often left to the last minute. Like the number of times I've done a compost workshop and I arrive expecting everything to be there ready to build, and we don't even know where we're building and it's not marked out. It makes a big difference. I teach a lot of lazy gardening. I want you to spend time having fun and make composting as efficient as possible. I often recommend people build their soil where they're going to have a future garden bed and the soil stays there. It's kind of like that no-dig philosophy. The less we move it around and disturb it, the happier things are. So once we've talked through all the theory, we're going to go down to a pile Graham has built. You can almost see it from here, but that will be a future garden bed. So he's actually doing in situ composting, which is great. Step 2, gather the materials. And again, this is something that takes a bit of thought, a bit of effort, a bit of planning. And when I teach composting in schools, gathering the materials is the bulk of the work. And I'll often give a school a list. We need this much mulch, we need someone to bring cow manure, we need all the grass clippings, we need all the weeds, and it's several classes going on those foraging missions that we need all those piles. And I think every single hot compost pile I've built, people have gone, wow, the pile's not very high. Like it takes much more material than most people realise. Step 3, building, and today we're going to add a layer to what Graham's built. We just don't have the material to build a full pile. And what's interesting, what Graham's doing here is he's not doing a lot of composting, right, Rachel?
It's not a separate compost heap, but he's doing a lot of in situ on ground mulching compost.
So chop and drop under trees and everywhere is beautifully mulched and it's working. So in some respects you don't have to make compost. And
he uses a lot of his grass, his cocoa grass.
Yeah.
He uses a lot of that to mulch.
Yeah. So because I love this feeling of this biodynamic compost, like look what I made, but I think even if I had a property like this where that was working, I'd still be going, let's make the most beautiful soil in the world to spread around and to use in potting mix and to have. So this 4th step to use it, I see a lot of people with food scrap, black plastic compost bins that are making beautiful soil, and like they'll open it up and say, look at the soil I'm making, and I'm like, okay, why is it still in the compost bin? We need it in the garden. We need to be using it. So what else do I want to show?
Is the cold compost and the hot compost, does it matter if the cold compost is out in the sun? Is that what determines the temperature? Is it the sun that determines the temperature of?
No, it's the size of the pile.
Oh.
And when you make it all in one go, it's like making a cake. So if you make a cake a layer at a time, and you put it in the oven and then you take it out and you add a layer and you put it in the oven and you take it out, you end up with one of those layer cakes. Whereas a hot compost pile, we're making a normal cake. So we want a cubic metre built in one day. And that, if you get the air and the moisture and the balance of nitrogen and carbon, the greens and browns right, then the temperature goes up and it holds that temperature. And it's in biodynamics we say that each compost pile is like its own being. And when I make them in the garden, they're like little kind of mounds that have their own character. So what I recommend is keeping a compost log. So each time you make a pile, jot down like the date. If you're following a biodynamic moon calendar, where was the moon? What went into it? What are your observations of the temperature? And every single pile I make, I try and think of a question, so that when I open it, I'm asking, how did this bit turn out? And I'm one of those sort of natural researchers that I'm always playing with something. So today's pile, I don't know, we're going to add the biodynamic compost preparations and a layer, and then Graham's going to keep adding for the next few months. That my question would be, when he opens it up and he gets down to that point where we added the biodynamic remedies, is that soil different to what went on top? Would be curious, yeah? So where I live, I have a tiny little garden. And this was my compost log for 2023. I got up to 60 piles. Oh, wow. So these ones down here were the soil farm, and then Sharda, where I use as a biodynamic teaching garden, and then elsewhere were community groups, schools, workplaces. And it's fun to keep track of how much you're building and how it turned out, and yeah, keep on refining it. So what else I wanted to say is every time I build a pile, I'm thinking, if it takes 3 months to mature, so today is what, the 8th of February, it's World Biodynamic Day. So in 3 months' time, it'll be the 8th of May. What will that soil be used for? So it'll be the end of autumn, coming into winter. If it were a pile I was building at home, I'd be opening it in May, using it in potting mix for winter vegetables, or using it on beds at the end of autumn. So what issues do I tend to face at the end of autumn that I want the soil to help with? And what do the plants need through winter that I can put into the soil now, so that that batch of May compost has those qualities? So you can get quite analytical with it, yeah? And where a lot of people think of compost as waste management, you know, we're taking all our garden waste and we're turning it into soil. It's also the soil, if the compost is being used to heal the garden, to bring something healing to the plants, to the soil, then everything we add to the compost as we make it is part of that medicine. And so there's a list here that I'm happy to share with everyone that I've called beneficial weeds and companion plants. And so we know biodiversity is good in our vegetable gardens, in our orchards, but we also want that biodiversity in our soil. And so how many different plants can you include in your compost? And if we're making compost today for May, what properties does Graham's garden need in winter? That's a question for you, Graham. So for me, I would be thinking, okay, in the Waikato, if it's a summer compost, I'll often add succulents into the compost, because the succulent plants have a lot of drought tolerance. But if the soil has that quality, then the plants do better in hot, dry summers. For winter, it's like we want to bring more warmth to the soil. I don't know, I'm thinking dandelion, echinacea, geranium. It's sort of an intuitive thing. Often I'll use nature communication to talk with the garden, like, what am I adding in the compost today? Another fun thing I'm doing with compost is working with commercial growers in the area where I live. Surrounded by market gardens, monoculture, onions, potatoes, carrots, and it's quite depressing. And when I meet with some of these growers, they're interested in reducing their chemical inputs. They're interested in improving the soil health, but they don't know how, and they don't have the space to do it. So this is something I did for a local onion grower. I've already been experimenting with composting tomato vines so that compost can be used to grow another vegetable. I blended the tomato vine compost with onion waste, and I called it salsa compost. It just seemed fun. So I took a jar of this finished compost to them, and the agronomist at this big commercial grower has taken the soil to test and see if maybe that's useful. So I think even as home gardeners, you know, I can't make compost at scale to supply commercial growers, but if we plant the seed of an idea that our food system could look different and could have composting within it, then I think it's beneficial to everyone. So Rachel and I talked about Graham's pile down there. It's really hot under the sun. So Graham, do you want to come and sit beside me so that we can hear? And you could talk a little bit about how this method works and how you came up with this method.
I mentioned this briefly to some of you, but when we started clearing some of our areas here for our food forest, we had a lot of kikuyu. In some areas we actually dug all the kikuyu out with a lot of soil and threw it in over the fence into the gorse. That was all gorse. And then after about 6 months or a year of that, I thought, well, I'm going to have to do something with this kikuyu, so I just covered it with black plastic. And at that time I put a few dead possums in there, a bit of roadkill, and we'd been throwing some orange skins and things in there. So that's really what it was. It's 80% kikuyu and a few other things we don't want in our compost heap. Then I put the black plastic on and left it there for the summer, and then at the end of summer I took the black plastic off just to see what I had. And I said, Rachel was here at the time, about halfway through that process last time she did a workshop, and I said to her, do you think it's going to be compost? And she said, I don't know, just see what happens. And what happened is we don't really have compost, but we have very, very good rich soil. And it got very hot, which I was worried about, but that didn't turn out to be a problem. And I thought about it afterwards, is that when you make a compost top, it gets really hot, and the organisms cope with that. They go out and come back in or whatever. So we do that every year now. And the secret really is big. It's at least 2 meters. How do
you get it up that high? Do you end up using a ladder?
No, we kind of toss it up, get tall walkers. We had the tallest heap I did, there's this woman here, and she was quite literally 6.5 foot tall, almost 7 foot tall, and she was great. We got really high for that one. And then I put the black plastic, it's the same bit of black plastic I've used for 5 years. So it works pretty well. And we're basically just getting rid of what would be waste. Because when I came here I had a very strong feeling and message that nothing should leave the property, and I had all the stuff I didn't know what to do with. So that's but it's all those raised beds out there are made just with kikuyu like that, under black plastic.
Fantastic.
Seriously.
Oops.
When you uncovered it, did you do anything biodynamic with it? You used like 500 or anything?
No, we didn't. We could have. I didn't really. I just spread it out. When I uncover it, I usually spread it out to twice the size of the area it was originally.
How much did it drop? Would it drop down from 2 meters?
Oh, like down 3/4 or 2/3, yeah. Then I spread it out.
And that was for 6 months or just over summer?
Yeah, just over summer. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a really good way to get rid of stuff that you don't know how you're going to deal with.
It's a big problem.
Yeah. Pretty much anything down there. If it's too big, it won't rot down. But then that's okay. You could just put it through the next heap if some bits didn't rot down.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
It's great. So
But that's not that won't have the magic that this has.
So what makes the biodynamic compost magic is the 6 compost preparations, numbered 502 through to 507. 502 is made with chamomile, 502 with yarrow, 503 with chamomile, 504 stinging nettle, 505 oak bark, 506 dandelion, and 507 is liquid, that's valerian. That this needs to be stirred for 20 minutes, so if someone wants to take the bucket and just gently stir in a vortex and then go back the other way and backwards and forwards, that would be wonderful. So for those of you who heard Rachel talking about the preparations this morning, we're using these for the compost pile. And to put them into the compost, I will often use a little ball of cow manure that's kind of like clay. It's nice and sort of malleable. Make a little indentation and then tip compost remedies into that and close them over. You want enough moisture to sort of activate them. To me it feels a little bit like yeast, you know, when you put yeast with the sugar and water and it starts kind of puffing up. So we need 5 of these balls, and I like to keep track of which ones are which so that when we add them into the pile we know. And I always put the 504, the stinging nettle, in the middle of the pile. I've been told that it's almost, it belongs next to our hearts. And if you think of stinging nettle, it's being high in iron, and our blood being iron, carrying iron, that Yeah, that goes right in the middle. And the other 4 I place in the 4 corners randomly, but with Rachel here there may be a sort of north, south, east, west, or sleeping, waking, feeling, willing. Different people have different methods.
I think as long as you've got just one preparation per hole, and you don't get 2 down the same hole or get 2 of the same one. That's just, and when you're doing it by yourself, you've always got your own method where you avoid any problems there. But it's only when you've got a group you sometimes get the room for confusion and
Yes.
2 preparations in the same hole.
So when I first started making biodynamic hot compost, I was confused how such a tiny little bit of the powder would affect the whole pile. It just made no sense. And the person leading the workshop said that she always thought of it like the human body has different organs. You've got a heart, lungs, kidney, spleen, and they each have their own role. And the whole organism works, even though the different parts aren't in the same spot. And I'm pretty sure each of the preparations is connected with an organ and with a planet.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Yes, with those qualities. Yeah.
I can never remember which is which.
Yeah, I can. But then that's also from looking at the planets themselves and the movements over 30 years. It's just seeing some of those qualities associated with the planets, also seeing those qualities also in one of the preparations or other.
Yeah. So in terms of getting hold of a set of preparations, you can buy them from the Biodynamic Association. Legally, they're only allowed to sell them to members, so you have to join up as a member in order to buy what they sell. It's kind of
Do they
awkward.
make it here in New Zealand?
Beg your
Do they
pardon?
make it here in New Zealand?
Yeah, they're all made in the Hawke's Bay at the moment. And one thing I would love to see is for people in different regions to have a group that come together, make the preparations and share them. Anyone interested in that? Look around, hold your hand up, higher, look around, connect, make eye contact. You're going to have to... Graham, can you see the people with their hands up? This is your Oromahoi biodynamic preparation making group.
All right.
So he's going to chase you all down, right?
So I'm going to
We're
get
going to chase him down.
I'll send around a bit of paper and you can put your name there, and we'll have to start an awesome group.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, so I'll send it round, and then we can connect and start it.
Katrina, was this valerian in here? Did you say?
Yes, yeah. So the 5 powders are the yarrow, chamomile, stinging nettle, oak bark, dandelion, and then the liquid is the valerian. And I've got some of the plants around here, so you can kind of get to know the plants and
have
what they
some
smell
at
like,
home
what they
too,
look
but
like.
Not as lush.
What's that?
I have some at home, but not as lush as your samples. Sorry, do you want me to carry?
How can you tell if the fence is on? Okay, we're good.
The electric fence is probably not on at the moment, eh? You just touched it.
Pardon?
But you didn't feel the shock then, obviously.
Oh, well, I put the leaf on and it didn't move. Is that the test? Like, does it...
Oh, no, it's the
These are the
next
hot
one
wires.
down. Yeah.
Which
I think
ones?
it's
The ones with the white.
I think it's
So when
this
you
one.
when you do that, do you feel it or does the grass
I'm
move?
not sure. I don't think it's on at the moment. 'cause
But
the
it's not
camera-
on, like I've
No,
touched
no.
it.
Oh, right. There you go.
Nothing happened with the grass, so I figured it was safe.
You're brave.
What's the worst that can happen?
Shall we have a wee look in the
I'll sit those there. There's plenty of, well, there's plenty of moisture up further back. Do you want to? So digging up in a corner or from the middle?
I don't know. I'll be looking in from the side and seeing what we can see. So yeah, we can just have a little look and a smell. I was wondering if it would already have any earthworms in it. I don't see those there, but you can smell it. I can smell it. It hasn't had the compost preps in it. It smells quite good. It's got enough air in it, but it doesn't got that take you to the other side smell. Decomposing.
If anyone wants to hold it, you can.
Pass it on if you want.
The good things are it's got moisture in it and it's got air, and you can see bits of fungus. You can see the odd thing crawling about in it. I don't know if we can get down a little deeper and just see if there's anything, any earthworms down further.
So I have a picture about the moisture. So I'm pretty sure Graham doesn't put any water in with it, but I can see that it's pretty moist. So would it be fair to say that it has the ability to hold moisture and also
I can see a worm.
Where? Where's the worm? Where's where? Where?
There, over there. In this. Yeah.
Ah, we have a worm.
Oh, cool.
Oh yeah.
But it takes two to breed, doesn't it?
Yeah, wonderful. Oh, well, I'm sure it's got a mate in there somewhere. We found one of them. So we've got moisture in there. A really good thing that Graham's done is with the edges, keeping a good shape to the heap and keeping the edges fairly compacted. Now, this has dried out for the outer 6 inches. So it's not going to break down, and that where it's dry it won't break down, but it is, you can see it's acting like a mulch, keeping that nice moist stuff so there's no air blowing through it and drying it out, so it's staying nice and moist, and I think that's Ace A1. Graham's been putting a lot of the sort of rotting plums or fruit, or the kitchen scrap goes there, what the chickens don't eat, doesn't it, Paul?
Yes.
So that's adding moisture as well, because kitchen scraps are always a bit moist, and a certain amount of green stuff obviously goes in, whatever this one was, fennel stems, and so yeah, it's interesting to see just what's happening here. And so there's a style of composting, isn't there, for every situation?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, we aren't, neither of us is part of the ongoing process here, so we're just looking at what's happening here and just extending on that a little bit, and talking about our the things that we can do, isn't it? Yeah. So I guess on this sound base, we just put that back together again, shall we? And do some more layers? Is that the idea?
Well, I think, are each of you wanting to do hot composting on your own land? Yeah? Is it primarily to manage weeds, or is it... Okay.
Is it primarily that you really want to be hot composting, or you want to be composting?
Yeah.
Katrina, hot composting.
Invasive weeds. I said invasive weeds.
Yeah. So the advantage with getting the temperature up is that you can kill some of those weed seeds. There's always a little section on the outside that doesn't get hot enough, so you've got a lifelong relationship to build with those weeds. But I think definitely building a hot compost pile is better for the weeds. So then if we imagine this is ground level and we pretend we're starting a new pile, that would help people. So we're going to start with an air layer, get some twigs and sticks.
Well, I'd just, grab a handful of this stuff and of these twiggy things from down here.
Fluff
use that
them up.
really.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, not adding too much more twiggy stuff.
Okay.
Or maybe other than those, you got some hedge trimmings, didn't you?
Yes, on the other side of the house, on the porch, there are some loppers. They weren't hedge trimmers, but they're loppers.
Yeah, no, but I mean, you had clipped some off the hedge.
Oh, yes.
And put some 3 directions.
You okay?
Yeah, secondly.
Yeah, I think if you're here, Graham, we carry on what you want to do.
No, but just what do you want to do here? What do you want to come
We were opening this up so we could have a look at what's happening underneath, so it's not a total unknown.
Yeah.
And we've had a look at that, and we can just put it back just absolutely as it was, and then continue with the materials that people bring in and what you've collected on the sheet and whatever, and assemble that and get some buckets of water and put the preps in. But
I don't want you to dismantle this heap. There's a lot of work went into here.
Oh no, we're not. I don't want to dismantle any more than what's been done.
I don't want to. Why are we taking this off?
Well, because there was the idea that they were going to layer on top of with the dry and then the moist.
So you want dry, do you?
And then layers up.
Yeah,
but I don't know if it's going to work.
Let's see what.
So my thinking is that each of the people that's come have come to learn hot composting to do at home.
Yeah.
So I want them to gather some green material so we can break it up to the length that's going to turn into soil most usefully, and they can kind of experience that action of keeping the sides straight. If we could increase it by that much, it would be good. Lovely.
Put that layer on top. Yeah. That's what you're thinking.
But the thinking is that that's not going to be enough to keep the moisture around the preparation balls. That if we can dig down a little bit and
dig the holes like that and put a preparation.
So that's going to look like we're dismantling it, but we're not.
Well, don't need to take this off there.
So I guess if we put the preps like down the middle, it's going to be
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the middle. Okay.
Yeah. You could almost put them in like there. Where
we'll dig a hole like you've done there, and then make a little compost. Make you a good little compost around there, and put the preps in there.
Well, the preps, we want them spaced evenly.
Yeah, I mean 5 to 7 of those, whatever.
No, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah,
5 holes, 5
good,
balls.
Yeah.
So we're going to be digging into here a little bit and dropping one in.
To dismantle all this.
Right. You built the sides really
Don't mess with a man's compost pile.
Well,
because I mean, I'm happy to. I mean, the thing was, I said I've got a system here.
Yeah.
I'm happy to put a layer on or put some holes in it, but I don't want you to dismantle my system.
No.
Okay. Well, it's good you came along.
I'll had a Northland and Far North. Yeah.
Oh yes, where do you live?
In Kairanga might be, this could be one of your contacts.
I live up at Kainaroa.
Sorry, I keep saying
around the Unu Harbour. You know the big harbour at the bottom of Karikari.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just live we've got a bit of a coastal.
I don't know which end is going to be better, I just know I don't have the energy. So we want to come in about that far, so one will go there, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, maybe she's already done them.
Oh yeah, there's some holes.
So what have we got? 1, 2, 3, so 4 and then 5.
Got it right there.
At home I've got a couple of bamboo poles. One's a thin one and there's a thicker one. So the thin one goes in first and I kind of wiggle it round, and then the thicker one goes in and I wiggle it again, and it's just the perfect size.
What about?
We're adding the preparations, if everyone wants to see that.
Thank you for that. Thank you. You're welcome.
This is a koha for your workshop.
Oh, thank you, Paul.
That's all right.
How about this? No? Too small? Too big?
Is that going to snap as you poke it in?
Hard for this.
Yeah, I did make a few holes.
Did you make any down this end? We found 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, they weren't.
Whoops.
Oh, space. Yeah, just make another one.
How deep do
Whoops.
you want it to go?
Yeah, that's
No, that's not going to work.
So shall I just make it into here?
Yes. So,
Down into the moistness, there's a nice place.
for people that don't have access to the preparations, there's someone I follow in America who says there was a woman, I don't know her name, somebody May someone,
Bruce.
May Bruce, who used just the flowers, and you get a little bit of the influence.
I was going to ask that.
So if
yes.
you don't have access
You don't have the
to
stag's bladder and
So if
better
you,
than nothing.
better than nothing.
it's better than nothing, and I think for me it helps gardeners like us get to know these 6 plants inside out, observe them through the season, feel what they add to the soil in their own right, and then when you've got a group formed to put them into the animal parts, then you're kind of, maybe not halfway there, but 20% there. So,
Yeah. She dried them, powdered them and mixed them with, it was honey, I think. I remember I made it once, and
It's with
smelled
honey
beautiful.
and with milk powder
uh-huh,
and the sugar in the milk powder.
okay.
Yeah, I remember I followed the recipe and made it, and it kept well even after a year. You lift the lid, it smelled beautiful. And I used it in this sort of compost, just sort of mixed it and spread a watery mixture around. But so, feel the freedom to do what you want and can, because anyone can do what they want, there's no rules. But what Rudolf Steiner gave, and a number of people have kind of followed the recipe, is as you've got there, and anyone who uses those finds it helpful. Yeah.
What about essences, like flower essences and things like that? Would that be something you could also utilise?
Well, I mean, it depends if you've got the senses to pick up what the influence of these things is. I must say the usual ones I can kind of tell if there's been compost chips used in it, the original ones, but I'm not sensitive beyond that artificial additions of
there's an element of do what you like, but don't call it biodynamic unless it's this. Yeah.
You know, because Rudolf Steiner, he was very clairvoyant and clairsentient and clairaudio, so he could see and feel and know everything. So he could see the energy, feel the energy, and when you've made a compost heap this size and you've done it as a hot compost and you've put the prets in, the energy that comes off the compost is like incredible. It's incredible. So you're working with something that's very, very dynamic, which is what biodynamics is. It's very, very dynamic, and it works.
Yeah.
On clay soil, you can see you've got clay soil, and then the next year you've got topsoil, and then the next year you've got more topsoil, and the next year you've got more topsoil. I mean, there's a biodynamic farm up in Weimar that sells meat, biodynamic meat, and when they bought that property, it was just clay covered in blackberries, and you have used biodynamics every year, and their soil just gets better and better and better.
And it's in conjunction with beautiful cows, no doubt.
Yes.
So there's a constant input of cow dung, and if you keep the soil active and get that cow dung and urine being metabolized straight away, then cows are actually the fastest way of healing the soil. And we've got this picture that whoever puts out in New Zealand that we have to reduce cow numbers because they're so bad and they're producing so much methane into the air. It's absolutely about cow management. The cows themselves have the capacity to absolutely heal the earth.
Do you want to say anything about, like I try and get cow manure in every compost pile, and I think of this as being almost like chocolate chip cookies and a biscuit. Like, when you get that lump of goodness, it's really good. And if you can't get a lot of cow manure, then I always mix a slurry and add that in, which feels almost like the chocolate cookie dough, that's still the same thing, but the lump of chocolate's always going to be different. Do you want to add anything to say about cow manure and cow slurry? In our ideal compost heap, we're starting with at least equivalent of the old bale of 2 bales of straw, 40-50 litres of fresh cow manure that you can mix to a slurry with 100 litres of water, 200 litres, whatever it takes, and you're just doing your layers of dry material, cow dung slurry, green material. Green includes any of your kitchen scrap, lawn clippings, greener garden waste, and then you basically brown with the dung on it, cow dung slurry, and then the green material, and repeating that sandwich of 3 layers. And for simple, sure to be perfect compost that will be hot, just as long as you've got your good carbon material, tra-la-la. But every situation is different. I'm talking about buying organic straw, though that's not possible. Hardly anyone has access to organic straw in New Zealand, and so I tend to you go for what you've got and adjust your methods according to your materials, isn't it? But I sometimes think of people who spend $300 for the hardware to make a raised garden bed and put the soil mix into it. It's cost them several $100s for 4 meters of garden surface. If you spend that money on straw, going to pick up a trailer load of cow dung if you can find someone who's got it, picking up some seaweed from the beach, gathering good materials, just dig over the surface where you want your garden to be in the ground, layer these things on. As soon as it's able, which will be pretty soon,
plant broad beans and blue lupin into it, so they've got roots growing down through it. Anything corn the seeds will germinate in pretty rough decomposing material. Bring the whole thing to life and let the worms do the work, and then you've got yourself a garden bed. It kills the grass underneath, and
you're great.
4 months you've got a garden, and it's highly fertile, it's slightly raised, and you've spent your money on some decent materials that's setting you up for the next 10 years. Whereas you get your edge, by next season you grow a season of lovely lettuces, and next year it's sunk to half the height, so the things are shaded by the wooden edges, and it's lost its fertility, and you get diseases on your plants, and so it goes from bad to worse.
Let's add these preps.
So did you say that that's how you get diseased plants, is when the soil's not healthy?
Yes.
That's the sign.
Who'd like to add the balls? 502? You can say a prayer or something.
Cities and major cities.
503?
What are they as well as the number?
504?
503.
We're horses from
Is that the hole there?
Yes. Horses may have been drenched, as may the cows.
505?
But that can have a slight something that can kill the worms inside the horse, and also kill worms in compost heap. But
Which one, Di?
506, you've got the dandelion.
Oh, cool. I love that.
Good.
and I know lots of city people.
And then you had two in one.
You are in the last hole here.
I just took it out. No, someone else didn't put it in here.
No, I didn't.
No.
Oh, you put yours in there?
Yeah, I just didn't realise there was a hole there.
Okay.
And then I said, I'm doing the brain. See if you can get it like that.
Oh, we're doing the brain.
So
You're just putting in another?
So I think a little, if you can find a piece of cow manure that's nice and moist, we'll put that over the ball. There's a nice piece.
Thank you.
Is that it? Is there one more? We're good. So then, in terms of layers, we've got comfrey, we've got Mexican sunflower, and we've got the hedge from the front lawn.
are you going to cover over your holes a little bit?
We've covered each ball with a piece of cow manure that's wet underneath. So then we'll just kind of fill them in a little bit with the material that's in there.
I didn't get a wet.
Oh, okay. That will do.
And you're going to put valerian on at the end.
I think, well, what do you think? Because it's going to be open.
Yeah, you
We could do it now.
Pour in a little bit and then save some to sprinkle over, maybe.
Come on, see.
You've got a whole bucket full, haven't you?
Do you add the valerian into one hole?
Oh, well, in this case, no.
No.
It's just sprinkle a little bit round and cover it, and then
Okay. So normally when I'm doing a hot compost pile, the final step is sprinkling the valerian, and I go down the sides of the pile, and then I try and save half a bucket. If I'm covering the whole compost with a coffee sack, I'll get the coffee sack into the valerian as well. Do you do that? No? And then I also cover with clay as well. But for today, Graham, we're going to put the valerian over at this stage, and then when we put the greens on top, it's on top of the valerian, so we're like starting your next layer. So if I pass the bucket over and you sprinkle a little bit, and we'll try and cover the whole top.
Katrina, do you have to put the preparations in the line of their numbers? So
No, but I always put 504 in the middle,
yeah,
And where normally I have the middle and then like 5 on a dice, because I make square piles, but because this is so long, it makes more sense to space them evenly in a line. And I thought for Graham to know, like, you're quite orderly. 502, 503, 504, 505, 506 in order.
I'm very Swiss.
Huh?
Yeah. I'm very Swiss. I like this. I like the Swiss one, yeah. I like the Swiss approach to gardening. I think I'd live very happy in Swiss.
Come and visit us.
So I've seen the valerian described as the icing on the cake, like the final outside layer that sort of seals it. Yeah. And there's something about the sprinkling of valerian that in a group setting, if I'm with children, I'll often call them around the pile and we have a moment of stillness. It's a time to say a karakia or sing something. Rachel, you probably have a valerian poem.
I don't have valerian one, but I mean, you know, often spontaneously someone will bring. There was, you know, singing Indian bhajans at something just a few weeks ago around a finished compost heap. I don't know any of those songs, but you know, beautiful harmonies and things. It's like, wow, this is magic happening around here. Vibrations. Yeah.
So
okay, so just
this more valerian we'll save for the very end.
Yeah, and put some layers on.
Layers, let's go. So, comfrey on.
We're doing it as one.
I think so. I don't know the name of the plant, but it's the hedge growing in the front garden.
Tuck it on there, girl.
Well, I was picking these leaves because I was working on the kawakawa kiwi. You know that the bugs will go for the tastiest ones. So,
Like the logic.
probably good this is on the top.
Would anyone like to add cow manure?
Yep. Have a go.
There's some water in the bottom, so
that's all right.
it's a little bit messy.
I'm okay with that.
And there's a bit of wash. That was our hand washing water from this morning.
From the CPP.
Two. Two. I got it. Oops, sorry.
Now, in India, some of the big composters are using CPP, aren't they?
Yes, yeah. Oh, yeah. So they've usually mix like a kilo and 50 litres of water or something, and then just spread good half bucket full on each layer, on every, at least on the brown layers.
Boy, the flies don't take long, do they?
They're thinking you're feeding them.
Yeah. Dinner time.
Okay, we're done.
Yeah,
Is
so
that washing water? Can I just...
Yep.
Is that okay?
Yep, that's fill and you can wash your hands in
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Yep.
well, we'd have to ask Graham if it's kind of level enough.
No, that's okay. I can poke it there.
Yeah, putting those prips in.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a photo moment.
Yes. Do you want to come and smile? You're on camera. Everyone come and get a photo. Take a photo of everybody.
Can you take one on my phone as well? Thank you.
It's my first biodynamic compost.
Is it? Photo time!
Using the traps on a very different type of heat. And this is what I like doing and see what happens. Maybe it doesn't work. Maybe it's wonderful. Tell us when to smile. Okay. Yeah. I just take one too. Okay. Relax.
Succulents.
And a nice stone wall beside is rather nice.
Okay, smile. Yeah, why don't you throw your arms in the air and go crazy. Crazy!
That's a very controlled crazy. So it's crazy. Crazy in a very.
We got to do it like a Rachel. A what?
What's that?
Last time we did this at the kindergarten 4 years ago, Rachel came at this time and said, I now unite heaven and earth.
Oh,
this
yeah,
beam.
yeah, I don't know if those were exactly my words.
Something like that. And this beam of light, quite literally, this wide came down. Really? Yeah, I've got the photo.
Do it again.
So we're going to try it again. Do it again.
We weren't proud to
Oh, come on.
No stress.
Well,
We've only added one layer, haven't we?
yeah. I mean, what have we done? We've put the preparations in, and that's uniting the material with all the heavenly influences from the cosmos.
There you go.
So, yeah.
Well done, you.
Should we sing?
Yeah.
Let's head up to the shade.
Yeah!
Katrina, what is